Elena Vasquez walked through the massive crystal doors of the council chamber. Her footsteps echoed in the huge space that stretched high above her head. The walls were made of some kind of glowing crystal that pulsed with soft light. She had never seen anything like it before. Around the circular room sat 12 beings that looked nothing like humans. Some were tall and thin like living glass. Others glowed with bright energy that hurt to look at directly. One looked like a swarm of insects moving together as one mind. Another was just a floating ball of gas with sparks inside it. These were the rulers of the galaxy. They had controlled space for 12,000 years. Every species in the galaxy bowed to them and gave them tribute. Now they wanted the same thing from humans. Elena stood in the center of the room. She felt very small. The beings around her were so old and powerful that Earth's entire history was just a blink of an eye to them. Humans had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. These aliens had been crossing the galaxy since before humans learned to farm. The High Arbiter spoke first. His voice came from everywhere at once, filling the room like thunder. Human representative, you stand before the Galactic Council of Ascended Species. We have watched your kind spread to your small collection of worlds. Now it is time for you to learn your place. Elena kept her face calm, even though her heart was beating fast. She had practiced this moment many times on the long journey to this place. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the United Nations of Earth. I am here to listen to what you have to say. The High Arbiter's crystal body flashed brighter. Listen well, human. Your species will now pay tribute to the Council. This is not a request. This is how things work in civilized space. Another council member spoke. This one looked like living metal that changed shape as it talked. Every month, you will give us 30% of everything your factories make. You will also give us 20% of all your food, and you will send 10% of your people to work on our worlds. Elena felt cold inside, but she did not show it. 10% of our people? Yes, said a third council member that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in the air. They will serve as workers. This is normal. All younger species must serve. They're betters. The insect swarm buzzed and clicked before speaking with thousands of voices at once. We have done this for thousands of years. Over 300 species pay tribute to us. It keeps the galaxy peaceful and ordered. Elena looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at her. Some looked bored. Others seemed amused that she was even asking questions. None of them looked like they cared about what she thought. What, if we refuse? Elena asked. The room filled with sounds that might have been laughter. The High Arbiter's glow got brighter, and his voice got louder. Refuse? Human, your entire species lives on 47 small worlds. We control thousands of our star systems. Our fleets number in the hundreds of thousands of ships. Your military has what? 3,000 vessels? About that, yes, Elena admitted. Then you understand why refusal is not possible, said the metal being. We could destroy every human world in a single day if we wished, but we are merciful. We only ask for tribute. The jellyfish creature floated closer to Elena. Many species tried to resist at first. The Korgan used to be proud miners who thought their world was too strong to conquer. Now they shape minerals for our buildings. The Thyralians made beautiful crystal songs before they met us. Now they sing only what we tell them to sing. Every species learns the same lesson, buzzed the insect swarm. The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the natural order of the universe. Elena listened to all of this without changing her expression. Inside, she was thinking about all the things she had seen on her way to this meeting. She had stopped at several space stations controlled by the Council. She had seen the tributary species working there. They all looked the same. Their eyes were empty. They did their jobs without talking to each other. When they thought no one was looking, Elena saw something else in their faces. Anger. Sadness. Hope that had almost died, but not quite. Elena had talked to some of them when the council members were not watching. A Korgan worker had whispered to her about the songs his people used to sing before the council came. A Thyralian servant had shown her a small crystal that still sang the old songs when no one could hear. Every species had the same story. They had fought at first. They had lost. Then they had given up hope and learned to serve. But the hope was not completely gone. It was just hidden very deep. "You have heard our terms," the High Arbiter said. "What is your answer?" Elena straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the giant crystal being. "I will take your message back to my government. You will have our answer in one standard galactic month." "There is only one acceptable answer," warned the metal creature. "We will give you our answer in 1 month," Elena repeated. The High Arbiter's light dimmed slightly. "Very well. But do not waste time hoping for alternatives. Every species faces the same choice. Submit or be destroyed. In 12,000 years, all have chosen submission." Elena bowed slightly. It was a sign of respect but not submission. 1 month. As she turned to leave, she heard the council members talking among themselves. They spoke in their ancient languages, but the translation device in her ear changed their words to English. "Another young species learning reality," one said. "At least this one seems smarter than most. She did not threaten us or make foolish demands. They always accept eventually. The mathematics are too clear to argue with. I wonder what tribute they will pay beyond the standard terms. Some species offer extra gifts to show their loyalty." Elena walked out of the crystal chamber and down the long hallway to where her ship waited. Her security team and diplomatic staff were waiting for her. They could tell from her face that the meeting had not gone well. "Ma'am?" asked Captain Rodriguez, the head of her security detail. "We're going home," Elena said quietly, "and we have a lot of work to do." As her ship left the space station and jumped into hyperspace toward Earth, Elena sat in her cabin and wrote her report. She thought about the faces of the tributary species she had met. She thought about the Council's casual cruelty and their complete certainty that humans would submit like everyone else. She also thought about something the Council did not seem to understand. Humans were different from most species in one important way. When humans were told they had no choice, they spent all their time looking for another option. Elena smiled for the first time since arriving at the Council station. The Council thought they knew how this story would end. They had seen it hundreds of times before, but they had never met humans before. The message Elena would take back to Earth was clear. The Council wanted tribute. They expected submission. They believed resistance was impossible. Elena was looking forward to showing them how wrong they were. Elena's ship arrived at Earth 3 weeks later. The blue and green planet looked beautiful against the black of space, with its white clouds swirling around the continents. 47 human colonies spread across nearby star systems. But Earth was still home. The United Nations of Earth building in Geneva buzzed with activity. Representatives from every human world had come to hear Elena's report. The Great Assembly Hall was packed with delegates, military officers, scientists, and civilians who would be affected by whatever decision was made. Secretary General Chen Martinez called the session to order. He was a calm man in his 60s who had led humanity through many difficult times. But Elena could see the worry in his eyes as she walked to the speaker's platform. "Fellow humans," Elena began, "I have returned from the Galactic Council with their terms. They are not terms we can easily accept." The hall grew quiet as Elena explained what the Council wanted. 30% of industrial production, 20% of agricultural output, 10% of human population to work as slaves on alien worlds. Murmurs of anger rippled through the crowd as she spoke. "How dare they?" shouted Representative Kim from the Mars colonies. "We are not their property." "What choice do we have?" asked Administrator Walsh from Europa Station. "They have hundreds of thousands of ships, we have 3,000. "We could try to negotiate," suggested Dr. Patel from the Science Council. "Maybe we can reduce their demands." Elena shook her head. "I tried that. They made it clear that these terms are final. Submit or be destroyed. Those are our only choices according to them." The hall erupted in angry voices. Some delegates demanded immediate military preparation. Others insisted that resistance would mean the death of every human in space. A few suggested running away to unexplored parts of the galaxy. Secretary General Martinez stood up and the room slowly grew quiet again. Let's hear from our military leaders first. Admiral Torres, what are our chances in a direct fight? Admiral. Marcus Torres was a tough woman who had spent 30 years building humanity's space fleet. She looked grim as she stood to speak. Honestly, we would lose badly. The Council races have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Their technology is better than ours. Their ships are bigger and stronger. Even if every human fought perfectly, we could not win a traditional war. The room filled with discouraged murmurs. Admiral Torres held up her hand for silence. But there are other kinds of war. Elena felt a spark of interest. What do you mean, Admiral? The Council has one big weakness, Torres explained. They have been winning for so long that they have stopped learning new ways to fight. They use the same tactics they used 1,000 years ago. They expect their enemies to line up and fight them directly. Dr. Sarah Kim from the Strategic Analysis Division stood up. Admiral Torres is right. I have studied all available data about Council military actions. They are predictable. They rely on superior firepower and expect quick surrender. They have never faced a long resistance campaign. Elena remembered something from her time at the Council station. There is something else. The tribute species hate the Council. They have been serving as slaves for hundreds or thousands of years. If we could unite them— That's impossible, said Representative Williams from the Centauri colonies. They would never risk fighting the Council. They have too much to lose. Elena looked directly at him. I talked to some of them. They are not as broken as the Council thinks. The anger is still there. It's just hidden. Secretary General Martinez leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting, Ambassador? Elena took a deep breath. She had been thinking about this during the entire trip home. We refuse to pay tribute. But more than that, we offer the tribute species something they have not had in centuries. Hope. The room was dead silent. Elena continued. We propose a galactic federation of free worlds. Every species equal. No tribute, no slaves, no masters. Representative Santos from the Brazilian colonies laughed bitterly. And how do we convince 300 enslaved species to join a revolution led by the newest and weakest race in the galaxy? We show them that the Council can be beaten, Admiral Torres said slowly. Elena could see the idea forming in the Admiral's mind. We win the first battle. Even a small victory would prove the Council is not invincible. Dr. Kim nodded excitedly. Yes, the psychological effect would be enormous. These species have been told for centuries that resistance is impossible. One victory would shatter that belief. Elena felt the mood in the room starting to change. I made contacts among the tribute species during my visit. If we reach out to them carefully, secretly, we might find allies before we even start fighting. Secretary General Martinez rubbed his chin thoughtfully. This is incredibly dangerous. If we fail, humanity dies. If we submit, humanity dies slowly, Elena replied. We become slaves like all the others. Our children will grow up serving alien masters. Is that the future we want? The debate continued for hours. Military officers discussed tactics. Scientists talked about technology sharing with potential allies. Diplomats worried about the risks of failure. Economists calculated the cost of war versus tribute. Finally, Secretary General Martinez called for a vote. All in favor of accepting the Council's tribute demands? 12 hands went up out of 200 delegates. All in favor of rejecting the demands and proposing the Galactic Federation? 163 hands rose. The room erupted in cheers and worried murmurs. Elena felt her heart racing. Humanity had just chosen the most dangerous path possible. They were going to war against an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena worked with a secret team to contact the tribute species. Using hidden communication channels, they reached out to Korgan miners, Thyralian crystal singers, aquatic Pelagians, and dozens of others. The responses were careful but encouraging. Many species were interested but afraid. Some asked for proof that humans were serious. Others wanted to know what would happen to their families if the revolution failed. Elena and her team had answers ready. The Federation would protect all species equally. Families would be evacuated to safe worlds before any fighting began. Every species would keep their home worlds and their culture. Most importantly, the Federation would share technology and resources freely. No more tribute. No more slavery. No more bowing to alien masters. By the time Elena was ready to return to the Council Station, 37 tribute species had secretly agreed to join the Federation. It was not nearly all of them, but it was a start. As Elena's ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit, she looked down at the blue planet one more time. In a few hours, she would deliver humanity's answer to the Galactic Council. She would either start the greatest war in galactic history, or watch her species be destroyed for their defiance. Admiral Torres came to see her off. "Are you ready for this, Elena?" Elena smiled. The Council thinks they know how this story ends. They have seen hundreds of species submit to their power, but they have never met humans before. They have never faced a united resistance. They are about to learn something new. The ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying Elena back to face the most powerful beings in the galaxy. In her briefcase was humanity's answer to their demands. It was not the answer the Council expected. Elena was looking forward to their surprise. Elena walked into the Council chamber exactly 1 month after her first visit, but this time she was not alone. Behind her came 37 beings from different species across the galaxy. There was Korthak, a massive rock-like creature from the Korgan mining worlds. Next to him floated Lyrian, whose crystal body sang soft musical notes as she moved. An aquatic Pelagian moved in a water-filled suit, while several insect-like Chitauri clicked their approval in their own language. The Dikari Council members sat in their usual places around the great crystal chamber. But Elena could see they were confused and angry. The tributary species were not supposed to be in the council chamber during official business. This broke thousands of years of protocol. High Arbiter Zelnoth's crystal form pulsed with bright, angry light. "Human, why have you brought these servants into our sacred chamber? They have no place in council proceedings." Elena walked to the center of the room, just as she had a month before. But now she felt different. She was not alone. She was not just representing humanity anymore. She was speaking for dozens of worlds that had been silent for centuries. "High Arbiter," Elena said in a clear, strong voice, "I have brought representatives from our new alliance. They are here to witness humanity's response to your tribute demands." The metal-shaped council member shifted forms rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Alliance? These creatures cannot form alliances without council permission. Send them away immediately." Elena smiled. "I'm afraid that's no longer possible. You see, these species are no longer under council authority." The chamber fell completely silent. Elena could hear her own heartbeat in the sudden quiet. Even the crystal wall seemed to stop their gentle humming. The jellyfish-like council member floated lower, its transparent body rippling with shock. "What did you say?" "The United Nations of Earth formally rejects your tribute demands," Elena announced. "Furthermore, we withdraw recognition of council authority over any sentient species. We propose instead the formation of the Galactic Federation, of free worlds where all species participate as equals." The insect swarm council member buzzed frantically, thousands of voices speaking at once. "This is impossible. No species has ever refused tribute terms. It has never happened in 12,000 years." Elena turned to face the swarm directly. "Then it's time for something new." High Arbiter Zelnoth rose from his crystal throne, his entire body blazing with white-hot anger. "You dare to challenge the natural order? You insects think you can change laws that have governed the galaxy since before your son was born?" "We don't just think it," Elena replied calmly. "We're doing it." At Elena's signal, Korthak stepped forward. His rock-like voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. "The Korgan mining worlds formally withdraw from council authority. We claim our independence and join the Galactic Federation." Lyrian floated next to him, her crystal body ringing like a bell as she spoke. The Thyralian crystal singers renounced their tribute obligations. We will sing free songs again. One by one, each of the 37 species representatives stepped forward to declare their independence. The aquatic Pelagians, the gas-breathing ethereals, the plant-like Sylvani, who had been forced to grow food for council worlds. The council members watched in stunned silence as their empire began to crumble before their eyes. Species that had served them for thousands of years were walking away. Species that had never shown the slightest hint of resistance were suddenly standing together in defiance. The metal-shaped being finally found its voice. You are all making a terrible mistake. We have been patient with your ignorance, but this ends now. Return to your worlds immediately and we might show mercy. Elena shook her head. The time for mercy was 12,000 years ago, when you could have chosen to build a federation instead of an empire. You chose domination. We choose freedom. High Arbiter Zelnoth's light grew so bright that several of the alien representatives had to shield their eyes. Then you have chosen death. The Council fleet will remind the galaxy why we rule and you serve. Will you? Elena asked quietly. Because I think you're about to discover something you've forgotten in all your years of easy victories. And what is that, human? Elena looked around the chamber at all the council members. Their alien faces showed anger, shock, and growing fear. They had never faced united resistance before. They had never seen their tributary species stand together. You're about to learn the difference between ruling through fear and leading through respect, Elena said. You're about to discover what happens when free beings fight for their freedom instead of slaves fighting because they have no choice. The Jellyfish Council member pulsed with agitated colors. You have maybe 200,000 ships between all your pathetic species combined. We have 1 million vessels in our fleet. Our weapons can crack planets. Our shields have never been broken. Korthak laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Your weapons are old. Your tactics are older. You have not fought a real war in 1,000 years. You have only fought surrender ceremonies. Lyrian's crystal voice rang out in harmony. Our children will not grow up as slaves. We would rather die free than live in chains. Elena felt pride swell in her chest as she listened to these beings who had been silent for so long, finally finding their voices. The council had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that slavery would break the spirit of these species. Instead, it had only made their desire for freedom burn brighter. High Arbiter Zelnoth stood at his full height, towering over the assembled delegates. Very well. If you will not submit willingly, you will be crushed. The council fleet will assemble within the month. Every world that has joined this foolish rebellion will be burned to ash. Elena met his blazing gaze without flinching. Then, we will be ready for you. Ready? The swarm buzzed with what might have been laughter. You think your primitive weapons and obsolete ships can stand against the might of the council? We have ruled this galaxy since before your species learned to make fire. You have ruled through fear and superior numbers, Elena agreed. But you have never faced an enemy that refused to be afraid. You have never fought opponents who had nothing left to lose. Elena turned to address the chamber one final time. The age of tribute is over. The age of slavery ends now. The galaxy will be free, whether you permit it or not. She gestured to the 37 representatives around her. We are not asking for your permission. We are informing you of reality. These species are no longer yours to command. High Arbiter Zelnoth's voice shook the crystal walls. Then you will all die together. The council fleet moves in 30 days. Use that time to make peace with whatever gods you worship. Elena bowed slightly, the same respectful but unsubmissive gesture she had made a month earlier. 30 days should be enough time for the rest of the tributary species to choose sides. I suspect many more will join us, once they see that resistance is possible. As Elena and the 37 representatives walked out of the chamber, they could hear the council members arguing among themselves in their ancient languages. Some were calling for immediate military action. Others were worried about the implications of their first real challenge in millennia. Elena smiled as they reached their ships. The council thought this was still about tribute and submission. They thought this was just another minor rebellion to be crushed. They had no idea that they were witnessing the end of their 12,000-year empire. They were about to face something they had never encountered before. A united galaxy fighting. For its freedom, the war was about to begin. And for the first time in galactic history, the outcome was not certain. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship, Hope's Dawn, and watched the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. Through the view screen, she could see the dark shapes of 50,000 council ships arranged in perfect geometric formations that stretched beyond the horizon of space. "Admiral," reported Captain Chen from the sensor station, "Council forces are moving into standard attack formation. They're not even trying to hide their approach." Torres nodded grimly. The Council had always won through overwhelming force and intimidation. They had never needed to be clever or subtle. Today that would change. "Federation fleet status?" Torres asked. 18,000 ships from 43 species ready for battle," replied Commander Singh. "The Korgan heavy cruisers are in position. Thyralian support vessels are singing the battle harmonies. All Federation forces report ready." Torres looked at the numbers again. 50,000 Council ships against 18,000 Federation vessels. On paper, it should be a massacre. But Torres had spent the last month studying everything humans and their allies knew about Council military tactics. The Council fought like they ruled, with rigid hierarchy and predictable patterns. Their massive fleets moved in formations that had not changed in 1,000 years. They expected their enemies to line up politely and be destroyed in orderly fashion. "Communications, patch me through to all Federation ships," Torres commanded. The comm officer nodded. "All ships receiving, Admiral." Torres took a deep breath. In the next few hours, they would either prove that the Council could be defeated, or they would all die trying. There was no middle ground. "Federation fleet, this is Admiral Torres. Today we fight not just for our own freedom, but for every species that has suffered under Council rule for thousands of years. They have superior numbers and firepower, but we have something they have forgotten, the willingness to fight for what matters." She paused, looking out at the distant enemy fleet. "The Council expects us to fight their way, with their rules. Instead, we will show them what free beings can accomplish when they work together. All ships execute Operation Liberation." The Federation fleet immediately began to scatter in all directions. Instead of forming the traditional battle lines, the Council expected, the ships spread out into dozens of small groups. Each group contained vessels from multiple species, creating a complex mix of different technologies and tactics. The Council fleet hesitated. This was not what they had planned for. Their neat formations suddenly looked clumsy and obsolete compared to the fluid movements of the Federation forces. High Admiral Vextar of the Council fleet contacted Torres directly. His insect-like face appeared on the main screen, mandibles clicking with irritation. "Human Admiral, your forces are out of formation. Proper military engagement requires orderly battle lines." Torres smiled coldly. "We don't follow your rules anymore. This is highly irregular. How can we conduct a proper battle if you will not follow established protocols?" "That's your problem, not mine," Torres replied, and cut the connection. The first phase of the battle began with the Thyralian Crystal Singers. Their ships spread throughout the battlefield and began to sing in perfect harmony. The sound waves they generated interfered with Council communications, turning their neat formations into confusion as ship commanders lost contact with their superiors. While the Council fleet struggled with communication problems, Korgan heavy cruisers struck at weak points in their formation. The rock-like beings had spent generations mining asteroids and knew exactly how to crack hard surfaces. Their weapons carved through Council shields like they were made of paper. Human tactical computers coordinated the entire battle, processing information from dozens of different sensor systems and predicting enemy movements with accuracy the Council had never seen before. Every Federation ship knew exactly where to be and when to be there. The aquatic Pelagians used their natural understanding of fluid dynamics to pilot their ships in ways that made no sense to Council tacticians. They flowed around enemy formations like water around rocks, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the Council could respond. Admiral Torres watched the battle unfold with growing excitement. The Council fleet was much larger and more powerful, but they were fighting like they always had, by the rules, in formation, expecting their enemies to do the same. The Federation fleet fought like a living thing, constantly changing and adapting. When the Council tried to surround one group of ships, those vessels would scatter and regroup somewhere else. When the Council concentrated their firepower on what looked like a major target, they would discover they had been attacking decoy ships, while the real attack came from behind. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the battlefield," Captain Chen announced. "Council losses are much higher than expected. Their formations are breaking down." Torres checked the tactical display. After 6 hours of battle, the Council fleet had lost nearly 15,000 ships. The Federation had lost only 4,000. The impossible was happening, they were winning, but Torres knew the real test was still coming. The Council would adapt eventually. They had not ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years by being completely stupid. High Admiral Vextar appeared on screen again, his insect face showing signs of panic. "Admiral Torres, we demand you fight properly. This chaos violates all principles of civilized warfare." "There's nothing civilized about slavery," Torres replied. "You want to see proper fighting? Here it comes." Torres gave the signal for the second phase of the battle. The scattered Federation groups suddenly began moving toward each other, but not in any pattern the Council could predict. Human computers had calculated exactly where each ship needed to be to create a devastating combined assault. The Chitauri hive ships used their collective intelligence to coordinate attacks across dozens of targets simultaneously. The gaseous ethereal beings created energy fields that disrupted Council weapons. Plant-like Sylvani ships released clouds of spores that interfered with enemy sensors. Every species in the Federation fleet contributed their unique abilities to the battle. The Council had expected to fight humans with human weapons. Instead, they faced the combined military knowledge of 43 different civilizations, all working together for the first time in galactic history. The Council fleet began to retreat. Ships that had been arranged in perfect formations just hours before were now scattered and running in different directions. Some tried to regroup. Others fled toward the edge of the star system. Torres opened a channel to the entire battlefield. "Council fleet, this is Admiral Torres of the Federation Navy. You have two options: surrender and join the Federation as equals, or continue fighting and face complete destruction." High Admiral Vextar's voice crackled with rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. You cannot defeat the Council. We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy." "Your 12,000 years of rule just ended," Torres replied calmly. "The question now is whether you want to be part of the new galaxy we're building, or whether you want to cling to the past until it kills you." The comm channel fell silent for several minutes. Torres could imagine the desperate conversations happening aboard Council ships as their commanders realized they were facing their first real defeat in millennia. Finally, Vextar's voice returned, much quieter than before. We need time to consider your terms." "You have 1 hour," Torres said. "After that, we resume the battle." As the fleets held their positions in an uneasy ceasefire, Torres received reports from across the Federation. News of the victory was already spreading to every world in the galaxy. 17 more tributary species had declared independence in the last hour alone. The Council's greatest strength had always been their reputation for invincibility. Now that reputation was shattered. Every enslaved species in the galaxy could see that the mighty Council fleet was retreating from a force they should have crushed easily. Torres smiled as she watched more Federation ships arriving at the edge of the system. Species that had been afraid to join the rebellion were now racing to be part of the winning side. The Council had started this war expecting a quick victory that would remind the galaxy why they ruled. Instead, they had created exactly what they feared most: proof that they could be beaten. The age of tribute was ending. The age of freedom was about to begin. 3 years later, Elena Vasquez stood in the same crystal chamber where the Council had once demanded tribute from humanity. But everything had changed. The walls still glowed with soft light. But now they carried voices and songs from hundreds of different species. Thyralian crystal singers had taught other races how to make their buildings sing with harmony. The chamber felt alive with hope instead of fear. Around the great circular room sat representatives from over 300 species. Some were former council tribute races who had joined the revolution. Others were council species who had chosen to join the Federation rather than fight to the bitter end. A few were completely new species who had been hiding in remote parts of the galaxy until now. Elena looked around the chamber with satisfaction. Where once 12 arrogant beings had ruled through fear, now hundreds of delegates worked together to build something better. The Constitutional Convention of the Galactic Federation will come to order, Elena announced. She had been elected Secretary General 6 months earlier, in the first free galactic election in recorded history. The delegates quieted down as Elena reviewed the agenda. Today we vote on the final draft of the Federation Charter. This document will establish the basic laws that govern our alliance. Elena had spent 3 years helping to write those laws. The Federation Charter guaranteed that every species would control its own worlds, no more tribute, no more slavery, no more forced labor. Every being in the galaxy would have the right to be free. The Charter also established the Federation Council, where every species had an equal voice, regardless of how many worlds they controlled or how old their civilization was. The primitive and the ancient would sit together as equals. High Arbiter Zelnoth raised one crystal arm to speak. The former ruler of the galaxy now served as one delegate among hundreds. Secretary General Vasquez, the Zephyrian people accept the Charter. As written, we pledge our full support to the Federation. Elena nodded respectfully. Thank you, Delegate Zelnoth. It had taken a long time for the former council members to accept their new roles. Some had fought until the bitter end and were now exiled to their homeworlds. Others, like Zelnoth, had gradually realized that the Federation offered them something the old council never could: true peace. Under the tribute system, the council had always been afraid of rebellion. They had lived in constant fear that their subjects would rise up against them. Now, as equal members of the Federation, they could finally relax and focus on building instead of controlling. Delegate Korthak stood up, his rocky form towering over most of the other representatives. The Korgan mining worlds support the Charter. Our children will grow up free, as we could never be under the old system. One by one, the delegates voted to approve the Federation Charter. The final vote was 287 in favor, 12 opposed, and 3 abstentions. The galaxy now had a new government based on cooperation instead of domination. After the session ended, Elena walked to the observation deck of the space station. Through the transparent walls, she could see ships from dozens of worlds docked peacefully together. Korgan mining vessels shared berths with Thoralian crystal ships. Human cargo haulers unloaded supplies next to aquatic Pelagian transports. It's remarkable, isn't it? A familiar voice said behind her. Elena turned to see Zelnoth approaching. His crystal form was much dimmer than it had been during the old council days, but somehow he seemed more at peace. What is? Elena asked. This. Zelnoth gestured toward the busy spaceport. 3 years ago, most of these species had never spoken to each other as equals. They existed only to serve us. Now look at them. Elena followed his gaze to a group of young beings from different species playing together in the station's central garden. A human child was teaching a young Chithari how to kick a soccer ball, while a small Thyralian sang encouragement in crystal tones. They don't even see the differences, Elena observed. To them, this is just normal. Zelnoth's crystal form pulsed softly. We ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, Elena. We thought we understood power. We thought strength meant making others bow to us. Elena looked at the former High Arbiter with curiosity. And now? Now I see what real strength looks like, Zelnoth replied. It's not making others serve you. It's standing together with others who choose to be there. The Federation is stronger than the Council ever was, because every member wants to be here. Elena smiled. It took us a while to figure that out too. Humans have not always been good at cooperation. They watched as a massive construction project took shape in the distance. The new Federation capital was being built by workers from dozens of species. Korgan miners shaped the basic structure. Thyralians added crystal singing chambers. Humans designed the technical systems. Ethereals provided energy management. Every species contributed their unique skills to create something none of them could have built alone. The old council could have built something like that, Zelnoth mused. We could have forced slaves to construct whatever we wanted. But it would have been just a building. This is different. How? Elena asked. This is a symbol. Every being who works on it does so freely, because they believe in what the Federation represents. That makes it more than just a building. It makes it hope made real. Elena nodded. She had seen the same thing happening across the galaxy. Former slave species were not just rebuilding their worlds. They were creating new art, new music, new technologies. Freedom had unleashed creativity that had been suppressed for thousands of years. The Korgan were composing new mining songs that celebrated their independence. The Thyralians were growing crystal gardens that sang of joy instead of sorrow. Even some of the former council species were discovering talents they had forgotten during their long ages of static rule. There is something I want to ask you, Zelnoth said quietly. When you first came to the council chamber 3 years ago, did you really believe this would work? Did you think humanity could actually defeat us? Elena was quiet for a long moment, remembering that terrifying day when she had stood alone before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Honestly, I wasn't sure we could win the war. The numbers were against us. Then why did you do it? Elena turned to face him directly. Because the alternative was worse than defeat. If we had accepted your tribute demands, humanity would have died slowly. Not our bodies, but our spirit. Our children would have grown up thinking slavery was normal. That was unacceptable. Zelnoth's crystal form flickered thoughtfully. And the other species? How did you convince them to risk everything? I didn't have to convince them, Elena replied. The desire for freedom was already there. It had been growing for centuries in every species you ruled. Humans just gave them an excuse to act on what they already felt. A soft chime indicated that the evening shift change was beginning. All around the station, beings from hundreds of worlds were finishing their work and heading home to their families. Not because they were ordered to, but because they chose to. Elena watched them go with deep satisfaction. 3 years ago, these same beings would have been working until their masters decided they could rest. Now they worked together on projects they believed in and went home when their jobs were done. The council was right about one thing, Elena said quietly. Zelnoth looked surprised. What was that? You said the strong rule and the weak serve. You were right. The difference is you thought strength meant military power and technological superiority? And it doesn't? Elena smiled. Real strength is being willing to stand up for what's right, even when you're afraid. Real strength is choosing to help others even when it costs you something. Real strength is building others up instead of tearing them down. She gestured toward the busy spaceport below them. The Federation is strong because every member chose to be here. The Council was weak because it was built on fear and force. Zelnoth was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, We spent 12,000 years thinking we were teaching the galaxy about order and civilization. Instead, a species that was barely out of its home system taught us what civilization really means. Elena looked out at the stars, beyond the station. Somewhere out there, human children were growing up on dozens of worlds, learning beside alien friends, building a future their grandparents could never have imagined. All across the galaxy, formerly enslaved species were rediscovering what it meant to be free. The Council had ordered humans to pay tribute. Instead, humanity had given the galaxy the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that freedom was possible and the courage to fight for it. Elena smiled as she watched ships from across the galaxy arrive and depart in peaceful commerce. The tribute had been paid after all, not by humanity to the Council, but by the entire galaxy to an idea, the idea that all beings deserved to be free.